Hello, hello, hello. Sorry about that. I was running into some technical difficulty, some kind of way I enabled my chat and couldn't figure out how to get it back right. So I had to start all over again. How are you all? I hope you're having a good evening. Let's see who we have in the building. Let's see who we have here. Hello, hello. Shiwana, how are you? So glad that you could join me for story time, sis. Hello, we have Egan Kyber in the house tonight. Egan says hello. How are you, Egan? I hope you're doing well. We have the hardest working man in the YouTube streets, actor slash basketball player slash part-time vlogger slash full-time student, Kane E. Moore in the building, and he still finds time for story time. Thank you, Kane, for stopping in. I appreciate you for that. Then we have Machi in the building. Machi says hello. How are you, Machi? We have Limless with us tonight. Limless says, Deborah, how are you, Limless? So glad that you could join us tonight. We have Brayla in the building tonight. She says hello to everybody. Shawana says, hey, y'all. We have Isaiah Morgan in the building tonight. How are you, Isaiah? I don't remember if this is your first time in story time, but I certainly hope it won't be your last. So glad to have you. Welcome, welcome. Isaiah says hello. Kane E. Moore says, Creative Circle, me, Machi, Egan came to your live yesterday. You was not there. You probably was asleep live, Kane. We have Ghetto Preacher in the building tonight. How are you, brother? He says, hey there. So glad you could join me tonight for story time. I certainly appreciate you. Egan is gonna be. Oh, that's wonderful, Egan. Ghetto Preacher says, I'm cool. Good, good, good. Thank you all for coming by to join me tonight for story time. I appreciate you being here. I don't take you being here lightly. You could have been anywhere else doing other things tonight, but you decided to come by and hang out in story time with me. Egan, you said he doesn't want to travel. Okay. All right, Egan. Well, you don't have to travel if you don't want to. I am going to go ahead and get started with our story. I am going to pick up, we're picking up where we left off with this story. This story has been running for a while. It's been running since I think story time 84. I think that's where this story started, at 84. So it's been running for a while. So I don't know how much longer we'll continue with it, but right now I'm on a roll with it, so I'm going to continue on. We left off with Expedition Greg and his dog Sky. I know they were looking for the portal to continue their journey on, because it seems like each place that they enter, there's a portal that leads to the next location. So they were in a predicament where something they did caused this lake or whatever to break through the wall or whatever, and it just started flooding, and the water just started rising and rising and rising. And he ended by saying that he was no biblical lyricist, but he knew God loved him, and so he didn't figure he was going to perish that way. So that's where we ended on the story, trying to figure out what was going to happen with them next as they were there surrounded by the rising water. So here we go. Suddenly, Expedition Greg, Sky the Fluffy Shih Tzu, Yemiyahu Ben Yahudah, and Guided Lion all got caught up spinning around in a whirlpool, causing Sky to release the scroll from his mouth. So here we have Yemiyahu Ben Yahudah, aka Big Papa Yin, that was in the story earlier, and Expedition Greg ran into him again, and come to find out, Big Papa Yin was really following Expedition Greg the whole time, hoping that he would lead him to the treasure. So Expedition Greg had finally gotten a hold of the scroll that everybody's been searching for, and Big Papa Yin realized it, so he kind of pinned him in a corner trying to take the scroll from him. And he was with his pet Guided Lion. So suddenly Expedition Greg, Sky the Fluffy Shih Tzu, Yemiyahu Ben Yahudah, and Guided Lion all got caught up spinning around in a whirlpool, causing Sky to release the scroll from his mouth. Yemiyahu Ben Yahudah reached out to grasp it, but the current was so strong until he missed it. Guided Lion also tried to grab it with his teeth, but he couldn't reach it either. Expedition Greg tried to steady himself by grabbing onto the large tube of the telescope, but it was too slippery for him to hang on. The whirling around made him begin to feel seasick. He was eventually able to grab a hold of the telescope while his dog, Sky the Fluffy Shih Tzu, was still trying desperately to swim against the current to reach the scroll. Yemiyahu Ben Yahudah gave Guided Lion a huge push towards the scroll, but it just caused him discomfort. He was still not within its reach. As he made one last attempt to reach the scroll, Expedition Greg's dog Sky was pulled under the water. When Expedition Greg saw Sky the Fluffy Shih Tzu bobbing up and down in the water, he lost all concern for the scroll, Yemiyahu Ben Yahudah, and the Guided Lion. In fact, at that moment, he no longer cared about adventures or finding the most greatest treasure in the world. Sky was his best friend, and the thought of losing him was as a frightening experience. To Expedition Greg, there was no greater treasure than a close friend like his dog Sky, and it was his job to keep Sky safe. Sky the Fluffy Shih Tzu circled around in the whirlpool and passed close enough for Expedition Greg to finally grab him by the fur. He pulled Sky towards him as quickly as he could. Sky squirmed as if suggesting to be released to pursue the scroll. "Forget about that stupid scroll, Sky," Expedition Greg said. "We have to get out of here." He pressed Sky up against the base of the telescope and then held them both tightly. As the water continued to rise, Expedition Greg and Sky started climbing towards the top of the dome. He figured that's where they needed to go for safety. As they reached the top, they looked back down to see where Yemiyahu Ben Yahudah and Guided Lion were. Yemiyahu Ben Yahudah and Guided Lion were climbing up fastly behind them. From the top of the tower and the distance, Expedition Greg could see that the lake had flooded everywhere. The spot where they had landed their balloon was also covered with water, and the balloon was nowhere to be seen. By then, the entire dome was almost submerged underwater. Only a small space at the very top, about the size of a trampoline, was uncovered. The water was still rising at a rapid pace, and soon they would be joined by their unfriendly guests, Yemiyahu Ben Yahudah and the Guided Lion. Suddenly, Expedition Greg noticed something that he hadn't noticed before. "Look, Sky," he yelled with excitement. From the distance was his boat, the Foreignexp, sailing towards them on its own. It was vastly approaching, so Expedition Greg knew he needed to act quickly. So he placed his dog Sky, the fluffy Shih Tzu, across his shoulder, bent his knees, and prepared himself to jump once the boat got close enough. Expedition Greg counted off 1, 2, 3, and then he jumped aboard the Foreignexp, trying not to drop Sky in the process. The minute his feet hit the deck, he was up and at the steering wheel, moving his boat as fast and far away from there as possible, leaving Yemiyahu bin Yahudah and Guided Lion seconds behind them. As Expedition Greg and Sky sailed away in the Foreignexp, Yemiyahu bin Yahudah just stood there staring at them with Guided Lion at his side. When the sea wind hit his damp clothes and Sky's wet fur, it made them shiver from the cold. But it didn't make Expedition Greg shiver the way the look on Yemiyahu bin Yahudah's face did as he watched them sail off. As Expedition Greg navigated the Foreignexp, it was like it had a mind of its own. It navigated them to a stream that fed into the lake, which eventually gave way to the river that led into the open sea. The constellations were all that Expedition Greg needed to navigate the open seas. He decided to head straight to the harbor to see his uncle, Black Bruce Wayne Jr., to tell of the experience he had with Yemiyahu bin Yahudah. Unfortunately, he felt as though his adventure was over. "We made it, Sky," he said, steering the boat as fast as he could to see his uncle. "Sky, I can't believe that Yemiyahu bin Yahudah has the scroll now." "Well, we may have lost the scroll, but at least we're safe. That's all that matters to me right now," said Expedition Greg. "I guess now we'll never know what was on that map." Suddenly, Expedition Greg's dog, Sky, the fluffy Shih Tzu, started barking at the floor of the boat. "What is it, Sky?" he asked. When he went to investigate what Sky was barking at, he saw the slightly wet silver scroll lying on the floor of the boat. It had appeared out of nowhere, just as his boat, the Foreignexp, had. There was a brief and confused pause as Expedition Greg pondered the idea of the island having mystical powers, as well as the mystical creatures he had heard many tales about. "Oh, Sky!" Expedition Greg screamed out, super smiley. "We've got the scroll! Yemiyahu bin Yahudah doesn't have it after all." Expedition Greg said to Sky, hardly able to contain his excitement, "It looks like we're finally going to see what the scroll says after all." As the Foreignexp made its way across the open seas, Expedition Greg was super smiley and full of wonder as he opened up the scroll. "Why, this can't be," said Expedition Greg with a morbid look upon his face. "This can't be." Suddenly, the tears began to well up in Expedition Greg's eyes. Until they began to blur his vision. Seeing the content in the map took him back to the night he stood talking to his mother at the waterfall before his parents left him. He recalls the conversation they had about finding a treasure and protecting it from evil people like Yemiyahu bin Yahudah. Is this really a map that tells you how to find mystical creatures? He thought to himself. For him, this is where it gets real. All Expedition Greg could think about at that moment was the void in his life and how he kept his sights on the constellation Pisces as his mother spoke that night while fighting back the tears. Never in a million years did he think that mystical creatures really existed. At that moment, he didn't have a solution, but he realized that he was definitely going to need more information before running off on another adventure. All he knew was there is a great big world out there, oracles and beyond, and new discoveries. Once he came to himself, Expedition Greg's eyes were still wide with wonder. The map contained some of the things that were in his favorite tales he had heard about in the world. They were only brought up by people who hung out in the pub called the official Dees spot, like Ola-Joe, the crocheting sailor, and her sidekick, Mr. PickelRick, his uncle Black Bruce Wayne Jr., Yemiyahu Ben Yahudah, the West Coast Wanderer, Big Animals Expedition, Miss Cruiser, Ghost Pirate, Nature African Explorers, and DORAY the Explorer. These people usually ran a slick production, so he couldn't be certain if they were telling the truth. His tears had already started drying up, and as he recalls his mother telling him he would always be their greatest discovery, as he thought to himself, this discovery has got to be the greatest treasure in the world. Expedition Greg thought these sad moments would eventually escape him, but here he found himself standing on the deck of the Foreignexp, feeling the void and tearing up again. The map covered all the world and the 7 seas. It had to be the treasure his parents had been searching for all those years, and everyone is looking for it. There were drawings of fantastical creatures and landmarks and dotted paths to sail them there. It was a map to magical creatures. It was the treasure that his family had been searching for since he was a child. Excited about sharing the news about finding a map with his uncle, Black Bruce Wayne Jr., Expedition Greg decided to get a jump on exploring the map so he could tell his uncle everything he discovered about it. He cleared off a small table on the deck and laid the map out to examine it closely, thinking about the many unseen wonders of the world. Everyone's looking for these hidden mystical creatures like Miss Creeper 361, the Diamond Bunny, and Freaky Geek. And we're going to be the first to find them, Sky, he said. Expedition Greg finally reached his uncle Black Bruce Wayne's harbor, and he was a happy soul. Time spent with his uncle were magic moments. To him, his uncle was heaven sent. He felt together they were the A-team. He wanted to visit with his cousin Fire and Air, who he thought was such a sweet pea, but there wasn't enough time. He and his uncle had to be on their way. Then they journeyed on to Isoisland in InQs world, located somewhere out in the waters located in the middle of the 7 seas. Expedition Greg, his uncle Black Bruce Wayne Jr., and Sky trekked up a grassy hill. The wind was blowing so hard until it launched them forward, giving them the right momentum to make it up to the top of the hill. Once at the top, they were met with several small streams going in different directions. Sunshine peoples illuminated on the sea all around them. They had traveled for weeks in search of Isoisland, and it was no minute tour because the seas were rough and there was lots of bad weather. It was the kind of adventure that only an experienced sea captain could navigate you through, which is why Expedition Greg was so glad to have his uncle, Black Bruce Wayne Jr., with him. He, his uncle, and his dog Sky, the fluffy Shih Tzu, had made it to their first destination. Isoisland in Q's world was one that none had ever heard of. It was an island that only the map he found could take you to. Neither Expedition Greg nor his uncle ever recall hearing anyone other than Shay speak of this island. Not even his parents. It was supposed to be Shay's journey because she was the only one he had ever heard speak about this place. But she, like all the rest, never recovered the map. Expedition Greg remembered her because she used to be exploring with DP. The gang at the pub said they had barefoot adventures because they were never really prepared for their journey. As told by Tina, Shay wasn't the logical one. While reviewing the map, surprisingly, when Expedition Greg pulled on a section of the map, it expanded larger than expected. That was a good thing because it made it much clearer to read. Each time it expanded, they were able to see more and more details. This map had far more abilities than any map he and his uncle had ever seen. This made Isoisland treasure sitting pretty for them. This magical map helped Expedition Greg to navigate the waters when he escaped Yemiyahu ben Yahudah and the guided lion. It had to be magical, he thought. Yet he didn't realize so was his entire adventure so far. According to the map, there was a lot more magical encounters up ahead, hidden away in Q's world. As Expedition Greg, his uncle Black Bruce Wayne Jr., and his dog Sky reached the top of the hill, they were greeted by a strong wind that took their breath away. As they focused their attention on a green valley down below, they were blown away by the sight of Seven Lakes Ferry, Tinkerbell 83, and other ferries flying around a little town out in the field. According to the map, their town was called Happy Lux, and Princess Bloom was the ferry's leader. For the first time in his life, Expedition Greg believed the tales he had heard from his parents and the gang, Ola-Joe, the crocheting sailor, and her sidekick, Mr. PickelRick, his uncle, Black Bruce Wayne Jr., Yemiyahu ben Yahudah, Patreon Pirate, the West Coast Wanderer, Big Animals Expedition, Miss Cruiser, Ghost Pirate, Nature Africa Explorers, and DORAY the Explorer, who all hung out in the pub called the official Dees spot. They were all at some point searching for this treasure because they were all on one lifestyle. This was the first time he had ever seen his uncle speechless. As they journeyed towards fairyland, they didn't know where else this adventure might take them. But one thing they knew for sure was that God's in control. God is in control. Yet they were hoping the fairies weren't going to think they were a couple of hitmen. So that concludes my story for tonight. I am going to tell you all of the YouTubers featured in the story tonight, and then I'll come back to greet whomever I didn't get a chance to greet before I started reading this story. Of course, you know, we have some of the people in the story that's been featured in other episodes of the story. Of course, you know, we have our main two characters, Expedition Greg and his dog Sky, the fluffy Shih Tzu. So they've pretty much been in every episode. Okay, so we have Yemiyahu bin Yahudah. He was featured in earlier episodes as Big Papa Yem. So he's aka Big Papa Yem. Excuse me, the Guided Lion was featured in a few other episodes. Then we have, let's see, we have the Foreignexp, which is the name of his boat that was also featured in previous episode. We have Black Bruce Wayne Jr., Super Smiley, ItGetsReel, Voyd, Solution, A Great Big World Out There, Oracles and Beyond, The Official Dees Spot, Ola-Joe the Crocheting Sailor, Mr. PickelRick, West Coast Wanderer, Big Animals Expedition, Miss Cruiser, Ghost Pirate, Nature Africa Explorers, DORAY the Explorer, Slick Production, Miss Creeper 361, The Diamond Bunny, Freaky Geek, Happy Soul, Magic Moments, Heaven Sent, The A-Team, Fire and Air, Sweetpea, Isoisland, InQs World, Sunshine Peoples, MinuteTour, Shay's Journey, Exploring with DP, Barefoot Adventures, As Told by Tina, Logical One, Treasure Sitting Pretty, Seven Legs Fairy, Tinkerbell 83, Happy Lux, Princess Bloom, On One Lifestyle, God is in Control, and Hitmen. So those are all of the YouTubers featured in our story tonight. Some, like I said, was featured in previous episodes, but those were all of our YouTubers featured. Let's see who came in while I was reading, because I don't want to miss anybody. We have Belize in the building. How are you, Ive? I think this might be your first time in story time. I'm not really sure, but I'm certainly glad to have you. Ive says, good evening, host and chat, and I certainly hope this won't be your last time. We have Cole Chav Shavit in the building. Says, here in the background, gonna work out. Okay, I appreciate having you here, sis. We have Natural Way Akadi. Says, blessings, Deb. How are you, sis? So glad you could join me tonight for story time. Natural Way Akadi also says, blessings to all here. We have InQs World in the building. She came in and got her little cameo tonight. How are you, sis? I hope you enjoyed having your cameo tonight. InQs World says hello and throwing up some love. I Believe says blessings, Natural Way. InQs World says hello, everyone. Shiwana says, hey, sis. InQs World is shouting out Shiwana. I Believe says hello to InQs World. We have Seven Legs Fairy in the building tonight. How are you, sis? I hope you're in time to catch your little cameo. She says, hi, host. How are you, sis? InQs is shouting out, I Believe. Seven Legs Fairy says, hi, everyone. Please smash the like button. Yes, please thumbs me up if you haven't already done so. I certainly appreciate it. Thank you, Seven Legs, for that reminder. We have my sis Gigi's Gluten-Free Lab in the building. Gigi says, welcome to Storytime, everyone. How are you, Gigi? We have Finest Wine Cooking Channel coming in, waving and throwing some love. Says, hello, everyone. How are you, brother? So glad you could join us tonight for Storytime. Seven Legs Fairy says, hi, Deborah, glad tidings. Hi, everyone. Please smash that like button. Gigi says, welcome to Storytime to Finest Wine Cooking Channel and Seven Legs Fairy. And Seven Legs shouting Gigi back. We have Gisela for Jesus in the building. It says, good morning, brethren. How are you, host? It is 3:26 a.m. here in the UK. What time is it where you are? It is only 10:45 where I'm at, Gisela, and I appreciate you coming into story time with us this wee hour in the morning for you. I certainly appreciate you. Finest Wine says thanks to Gigi and good evening. Gisela for Gigi said good morning, chat room and guests. Gigi says welcome to Gisela. Finest Wine says good evening to Gisela. Gisela's shouting out Gigi. Says thanks for the welcome. Shiwana shouting out Gigi. We have Deborah Otpot in the building. Says hello, everyone. How are you, Deborah? So glad you could join us tonight for story time. Shiwana says this is a good story. I'm glad you're enjoying it, Shiwana. Thank you so much. We have Carolyn East All in the building. She says hello, Deb. Glad tiding. How are you, sis? I appreciate you joining us tonight. Gigi shouting out Shiwana. Deborah Akpa shouting out Gigi. Carolyn East All shouting out Gigi and Shiwana. Gigi's welcoming in Deborah Akpa. Gisela for Jesus says Finest Wine Cooking Channel. Good morning. It is 3:29 a.m. here in the UK. Where are you? That it is evening for you. And Shiwana shouting out Carolyn East All. We have Minister of Music Terrence in the building tonight. How are you, Minister of Music Terrence Troy? He says, hey, Miss Deborah. And hey, everybody. Minister Terrence, I hope you were able to go back and find the story you were featured in before. Gigi's welcoming in Minister of Music Terrence. She want to shout out Minister of Music Terrence. We have 10 Bells in the building. Says, good evening, host, and everybody in the chat. And hey to Gigi. 10 Bells, I hope you made it in time to catch the story this time. Minister of Music is shouting out Gigi. 10 Bells is shouting out InQs World. Gisela for Jesus is shouting out 10 Bells. Say good morning. Welcome to our midst. 10 Bells is shouting back at Gisela. Carolyn East All is saying hi to 10 Bells. Shiwana says hi to 10 Bells. Carolyn is shouting out Minister of Music Terrence. 10 Bells says, I feel the love in the chat. Yes. Yes, we do. We feel the love in the chat. Minister of Music Terrence is shouting out Carolyn. East All. 10 Bells says, where's Miss Full Roller? Where's the dancing diva? She's probably in the bushes dancing. Natural Wear Cardi says, blessings to Brother Terrence. 10 Bells says, I like magical maps. You would. All those weird people you be meeting. Some of them might just have a magical map. Tim Bell says, hey to Natural Way Akati. Seven Legs Fairy says, hi everyone. Please smash the like button. Natural Way Akati says, blessings to Tim Vales. Tim Vales says, I love fairies. Gigi shouting out Natural Way Akati and Tim Vales. Tim Vales says, I want to go to Fairyland. When you write, you can go anywhere you want to go and be anybody you want to be, Tim Vales. That's the beauty of writing. Seven Legs Fairy says, I purchased your book, Miss Deborah. I'll film an unboxing video Friday. Blessing to you forever and always. Thank you so much, Seven Legs Fairy. For those of you who may not know, I am a published author. This is my book. It is called My Struggle and Broken Pieces, A Healing for My Soul. It is available at Amazon.com and on Kindle. It is scripture based. It is in no means meant to be a replicate of the Bible. I just want to put that disclaimer out there. But it is scripture based. And thank you so much, Seven Legs Fairy, for supporting me. Several people in our chat won a book. Earlier during the year, I was doing book giveaways during some of the live streams as we celebrated each other's birthday storytime style. And several people, I think I wound up giving about 12 to 14 books people won within this year. InQs World says, hey to Tim Vales and Finest Wine Cooking Channel. Gigi shouting out InQs World. We have Zero the Infinite in the building. How are you? So glad that you could join us. Says, hey, Deborah, glad tidings and greetings, everyone. Zero the Infinite, I think you were featured in a story way back when. These stories been going so long. This is like our 90-second story. So I can't keep up with the dates and who. But any more time you're featured in a story, your name will be in the description area of the story. But so glad to have you here. InQ's World shouting out Gigi. Carolyn East All says, hey to InQ's World. Natural Way Akati says, thank you so much, Gigi. Not watching chat, but enjoying the story time. I'm glad you're enjoying it, Natural Way. InQ's World shouting out Carolyn East All. Shay's Tube is in the building tonight. How are you? So glad you could join us. Shay's Tube says, hit hi to all. Shay, I don't remember if it's just your first time, but I certainly hope it won't be your last. But I appreciate you coming in. InQ's World says, I think this is my second time featured in Storytime. Love it. No, I think it's like your third InQ's World. I think the one that you found before was you were in at the time or something, but I had featured you in a story or two prior to that. But I'm glad you're enjoying Storytime and being featured. Tim Bell says, I like the story you was in Q's World. Tim Bell says hi to Shay's Tube. Shay Tube says hi back to Tim Bells. And Q's World says, laugh out loud. Me too, Tim Bells. I'll be just as tickled. Gisela for Jesus said, Deborah Tidings. Those are long list of those that were featured in tonight's story. Actually, Gisela, that's a short list. Because if you go back and look at some of those other stories, I know I did one that was, I titled it The Biggest YouTube Shout Out. And it had like about almost 100 names in it. And then I actually wound up did another story, and it actually was more YouTubers featured than that. So, but yeah, it was a lot tonight, but that's not the most that I've ever had. We have Miss E. Johnson Woodson in the building. How are you, sis? So glad to see you. Says Deborah Glad Tidings, I'm just making it in. I'm way behind tonight. I missed story time, but I watched the replay. Well, I appreciate that for you. And we certainly are glad to just see you here and know that you're around and well. Miss Johnson Wooten is shouting out 12 bells and says, don't forget to give hosts a thumbs up. Thank you so much for that reminder, Miss E. Johnson Wooten. And Gigi is welcoming in Miss Wooten. Uh-oh, there's money in the chat. We got to play the money song. There is money in the chat. Johnson Wooten and Gigi is welcoming in. Uh-oh, there's money in the chat. We gotta play the money song. Hey, what that means? Cha-ching, cha-ching. Hey, what that means? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Cha-ching. Hey, what that means? Thank you, thank you, thank you for that super chat, InQs World. I appreciate you for that. Thank you, thank you. Says, love the stories. Miss E. Johnson Wooson says, InQs World, awesome super chat. Shay Tube says, Deborah got time. This is my first time in a live of yours, but I have watched your replay. Thank you so much, Shay Tube. I appreciate that. And I hope you enjoy those stories. And Q's World is dancing and shouting out E. Johnson Wooten. Shay's Tube says, very creative. Thank you, Shay's Tube. This is my way of shouting out YouTubers. And Q's World says, I will have to look for the other one. Okay. Fine as wine cooking, throwing some love and dancing and shouting out in Q's World. Gisela for Jesus says, wow, 100 names. I bet you need warm water after such 100 names inclusive in your story that night. Yeah, sometimes I'll drink hot tea, Gisela, during story time. I think tonight was one of those nights that I should have drank some, but I was just drinking room temperature water. Shay's Tube says, I am a writer also and have published a book with my 2 oldest daughters back in 2016. Okay. All right. Where's your book published, Shay's Tube? And says, Deborah, I write song lyrics. Okay, poetry, plays, and novels. Your novels. That is wonderful. I just recently started dabbling with the poetry. I never really considered myself a poet, but I always like poetry, and I would always go somewhere to listen to people do their poetry, Shay's Tube. And so actually, my story, I'm known for story time, but actually, if you look at my page, you'll see that I do story time, I do poetry, I do some challenges, and I'm a wannabe comedian, so I do some comical things as well. So like I said, I never considered myself a poet. My youngest daughter actually does poetry, had a big, huge binder of poetry that she wrote in. She was actually going to publish it, and somebody stole her binder. NQ's World is dancing. Gigi's dropped NQ's link. Gigi goes, hey. NQ's World says, hey, the finest wine. We have Funko Pop Ohana in the building tonight. Funko Pop says, hi, Deborah. How are you, Funko Pop? So glad you could join us tonight. Shay's Tube is dancing. NQ's World says, you are so welcome. And she's dancing. Gigi's welcoming in Shay's Tube. Shay's Tube is shouting back out at Gigi. Gigi shouting out Funko Pop Ohana. NQ's World says, thanks to Gigi. Funko Pop Ohana says, hi to Gigi and thanks. Shay Tube says, Deborah on Amazon. Barnes and Nobles. Okay, what's the name of your book? What's the title of your book, Shay's Tube? Gigi, could you do me a favor? Could you write that down or whatever for me? The name of Shay's Tube's book. And Gigi says thank you to NQ's World. Shay's Tube says, Deborah, that title is very nice. Comical is good. Yeah. Funko Pop Ohana says, I'm good. Just got home from work. Okay, well, we're glad you made it in safely, Funko Pop Ohana. from work. We are certainly glad you stopped in for story time. I don't know if you made it in time to hear the story, but the beautiful thing I love that YouTube offers us the opportunity to check each other out on the replay. Shay too said, I started writing 11-year-old, wrote a poetry book with 200 poems. Okay. And at 11 wrote a 500-page play called Love, Hate, Marriage, and Divorce. Oh, wow. Wow. That's something when you realize you have those gifts so young, and when someone nurtures them. That is wonderful. That is wonderful. I actually had started a second book. A few years back, and my laptop crashed and I misplaced the flash drive that I had, but luckily I cleaned my garage a few months back and found this box that had some things in it, and was lucky enough to find those flash drives to recover that book. So I'll start back writing on that book. I think I had done like 6 chapters, but I put that on the back burner because I'm writing on one. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking all of these stories that I've done about the YouTubers, and I'm compiling them into a book. So that is up and forthcoming. I'm almost finished with it and getting ready to publish it. So that's my project I'm working on now. Shay's too says Deborah Tidings is called Baby Mama Chronicles. I just co-wrote a few pages. Okay, that's the one that's available at Amazon. And okay, Baby Mama Chronicles. All right, sounds like a good read. Minister Music Terrence says hi to Shay's too. Okay, all right. Well, I am not going to prolong the night. I certainly appreciate each and every one of you stopping in to join me for story time. I am glad that you all enjoy the stories, and I enjoy telling them as much as I do listening myself. Do we have any birthdays in the house tonight? I don't want to miss our birthday people. Do we have any birthdays? If you're celebrating a birthday in this, what season is it now? I think it's the Scorpio season. Tim Vales is throwing some love. Shay's World shouting out to Minister Terrence. Okay, so I guess we don't have any. I certainly appreciate each and every one of you. I love you all. Always remember, until we meet again, may his peace be with you. Story time is every Monday, Wednesday, Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. I will see you at the next story time. And always remember, I have a will to live. I love you all, and good night.